Garrick Voss never expected to stand among the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Yet here he was, walking through the grand halls of the Selvera High Council, surrounded by alien dignitaries, warriors, and nobles. The air was thick with strange scents, burning incense, metallic oils, and something that smelled like fresh rain. Towering banners of different alien empires hung from the ceiling, each displaying symbols of honor, power, and tradition. He adjusted his jacket, feeling out of place among the tall, armored warriors of the Excelvera species. They had sleek, dark blue skin, sharp golden eyes, and long braided hair that shimmered under the glowing crystal lights. Unlike humans, they walked with a natural grace, their movements precise and controlled. A deep voice echoed through the hall. "Garrick Voss of Earth, step forward." Garrick swallowed hard but moved forward confidently. He had been sent here as a diplomat to represent humanity at the Unity Summit, an event where different alien civilizations gathered to strengthen alliances. He expected political talks, trade agreements, and maybe some heated debates. What he didn't expect was to be chosen for a ritual of honor. He stopped before the High Council, a group of Excelveran elders dressed in ceremonial robes woven with golden threads. The leader, Elder Vortan, watched him carefully before speaking. "You have been chosen to participate in the ritual of honor," Vortan announced. His voice carried the weight of centuries, calm but powerful. "Do you accept this challenge?" Garrick hesitated for only a moment. He had no idea what this ritual involved, but refusing it in front of the gathered aliens would be seen as an insult. Humanity was still new to the galactic stage, and the last thing they needed was to be seen as weak. So, with a firm nod, Garrick replied, "I accept." A murmur spread through the crowd. Some aliens looked surprised. Others smirked, clearly thinking this human had no chance. "Then it is decided," Elder Vortan said, his golden eyes narrowing. "Let the ritual begin." The arena of trials. Garrick followed a group of Selveran warriors down a long stone corridor leading to an underground chamber. The walls glowed with bioluminescent moss, casting an eerie blue light. The deeper they went, the louder the sound of chanting became. Finally, they stepped into a vast arena, carved into the rock itself. Thousands of aliens gathered in the stands, their voices a mix of excitement and curiosity. In the center of the arena, a circular battleground was marked by glowing runes. One of the warriors, a tall Selveran with intricate tattoos on his arms, turned to Garrick and smirked. "You are either very brave, human, or very foolish. Can't it be both?" Garrick replied with a small grin. The warrior chuckled before explaining. "The ritual of honor is a sacred tradition. Only the strongest, smartest, and most resourceful survive. If you fail, your people will be seen as weak." Garrick took a deep breath. "No pressure, right? What are the rules?" he asked. The warrior's golden eyes gleamed. "There are 3 trials: the test of endurance, the trial of intellect, and the duel of spirit. Succeed in all, and you will earn the highest honor among our people." "And if I fail?" Garrick asked. The warrior's smirk faded. "Then you will leave in disgrace." Garrick clenched his fists. He wasn't just fighting for himself. He was fighting for all of humanity. The test of endurance. The first trial began moments later. Garrick stood on the battleground as a massive metal door opened, releasing a war-beast into the arena. The creature was 8 feet tall, covered in thick, spiked armor, and had 4 muscular arms ending in razor-sharp claws. The crowd roared in excitement. "Survive for 10 minutes, a voice announced. Garrick's heart pounded as the beast charged, its footsteps shaking the ground. He dove to the side just in time, barely avoiding the deadly claws. The beast snarled, turning toward him with unnatural speed. It lunged again, and this time, Garrick rolled under its legs, coming up behind it. He wasn't stronger than this thing, but humans had something special. adaptability. The Vor beast was used to enemies trying to fight it head-on. Garrick, however, was different. He kept moving, forcing the creature to tire itself out. He dodged, jumped, rolled, never giving it a chance to land a clean hit. Minutes passed, and the beast began to slow, its breathing heavy. Garrick saw his opportunity. He grabbed a broken piece of a spear from the arena floor and jabbed it into the creature's sensitive side. The beast roared in pain but didn't fall. It only grew angrier. Time. The voice boomed. Guards rushed in, pulling the beast away. The crowd erupted in cheers. Garrick dropped to one knee, panting. He had survived. But this was only the beginning. Garrick Voss stood in the center of the arena, still breathing heavily from his battle with the Vor beast. His muscles ached, and sweat dripped from his forehead. The first trial had pushed him to his limits, but he had survived. One victory down, 2 more to go. Above him, the Exel-Varen High Council watched from their elevated seats. The leader, Elder Vortan, stood and raised a hand. The crowd immediately fell silent. "You have proven your endurance, human," Vortan announced, "but strength alone does not make one worthy. The second trial, the trial of intellect, will test your mind. If you fail, you will leave in disgrace." Garrick wiped his brow and muttered to himself, "Great, just what I needed. A pop quiz in front of an entire alien audience." The floor of the arena shook, and the ground beneath Garrick's feet began to descend. He realized he was standing on a large circular platform that was lowering into a hidden underground chamber. The crowd disappeared from view as the stone walls closed above him. Torches flickered along the chamber walls, casting eerie shadows. Ahead, a long stone bridge stretched across a deep, dark chasm. At the far end of the bridge stood an ancient Exel-Varen puzzle gate, covered in glowing runes. A Exel-Varen warrior stood nearby, watching Garrick with cold, golden eyes. This was his opponent. From the shadows, a mechanical voice echoed, "The trial begins. Solve the puzzle before your opponent. If you fail, the bridge will collapse, and you will fall." Garrick frowned. Well, that's motivating. The puzzle of the ancients. The Exel-Varen warrior sprinted forward, moving with unnatural speed. Garrick cursed and ran after him. By the time Garrick reached the puzzle gate, the warrior was already tracing his fingers over the glowing symbols, reading them with ease. Garrick, on the other hand, had no clue what they meant. The puzzle gate had 9 rune symbols, each glowing with a faint blue light. A large stone tablet nearby had a cryptic riddle carved into it. Garrick quickly read it aloud. "Only those who understand the cycle of the stars may pass. Align the moons, and the path shall open." Garrick narrowed his eyes. A star cycle? Moons? That sounded like an astronomy problem. The Exel-Varen warrior was already pressing symbols, shifting the runes with smooth confidence. He knew this puzzle. Garrick was at a disadvantage. He took a deep breath. "Think, Garrick. Use what you know." Then it hit him. Moons orbit planets. Planets orbit stars. The puzzle must be about celestial movement. He studied the 9 symbols again. They looked like different moon phases. If he arranged them in the correct order, from the new moon to the full moon, it should form a complete cycle. Carefully, he pressed the first rune. It shifted, glowing brighter. So far, so good. The Exel-Varen warrior glanced at him, frowning. He had just realized Garrick was catching up. Faster now. Garrick pressed each symbol in order, forming a full lunar cycle. When he pressed the last rune, the entire puzzle gate rumbled. The stone doors slid open with a deep groan. Garrick had solved it first. The Exel-Varen warrior let out a growl of frustration just as the bridge beneath them began to shake. The bridge is collapsing, Garrick realized. He didn't hesitate. As the stones crumbled beneath their feet, he grabbed the Exel-Varen warrior's arm and yanked him through the gate. The warrior stumbled forward, barely escaping as the bridge fell into the abyss below. He stared at Garrick in shock. "Why did you save me?" he asked, his golden eyes filled with confusion. Garrick shrugged. "Winning doesn't mean letting others die." The warrior stared at him for a long moment, then finally gave a small nod of respect. "Perhaps humans are not as foolish as I thought. The trial is over." The puzzle gate led into another chamber, where a staircase spiraled upward. Garrick climbed quickly, his legs burning with effort. When he emerged back into the arena, the crowd was silent for a moment, then erupted into cheers. Above, Elder Vortan observed him carefully. "The human has completed the second trial," he announced. "He has shown wisdom and honor." Garrick exhaled in relief. 2 trials down, 1 more to go. But as he looked toward the High Council's balcony, he noticed something strange. 2 Zelveran women stood beside Vortan, watching him with unreadable expressions. Their clothing was finer than the others, their posture elegant yet strong. Something told Garrick that they weren't just spectators. They were important. But before he could think more about it, a booming voice declared, "Prepare for the final trial, the duel of spirit." Garrick rolled his shoulders, shaking off the fatigue. No turning back now. Garrick Voss wiped the sweat from his brow as he stood in the center of the Excelvera arena once again. His body ached from the first 2 trials, the battle with the Vor Beast and the puzzle of the ancient gate, but he couldn't stop now. Above him, the High Council observed in silence. The thousands of aliens in the stands waited for the final trial to begin. The air was thick with tension. Elder Vortan finally spoke. "You have shown endurance. You have shown intelligence, but strength and wisdom alone do not make one worthy." His golden eyes locked onto Garrick. "The final trial, the duel of spirit, will test your soul." Garrick took a deep breath. Soul. What did that mean? The arena floor trembled, and a new battleground rose from beneath the ground. A circular stone platform emerged, surrounded by glowing blue energy. Garrick stepped onto it, heart pounding. A shadow moved across the arena. From the opposite side, a Selveran warrior stepped forward. The warrior was tall and powerful, with dark blue skin and golden tattoos running down his arms. His piercing eyes glowed with confidence. The crowd whispered his name in hushed tones. Rakefire. Garrick immediately understood. This was no ordinary fighter. This was a champion. Rakefire raised his head and spoke. "I am the chosen warrior of my people. If you wish to prove your worth, you must defeat me." The energy around the platform flickered. Garrick realized the barrier wasn't just decoration. It was a shield. No one could leave until the fight was over. The duel had begun. The first clash. Rakefire moved fast. In a blink, he closed the distance between them and struck with a spinning kick. Garrick barely dodged. The force of the kick sent a gust of wind past his face. If that had hit, it would have knocked him out instantly. "Great," Garrick muttered. "He's faster than me." Rakefire attacked again. A flurry of punches, precise and deadly. Garrick dodged and blocked as best as he could, but the Excelveran warrior was overwhelming him. A hard strike to his ribs sent him stumbling back. Pain flared through his body. Rakefire didn't give him time to recover. He lunged forward with a powerful palm strike aimed at Garrick's chest. But Garrick saw an opening. At the last second, he twisted his body, grabbed Rakefire's arm, and used his own momentum against him. The Excelveran warrior's eyes widened as Garrick flipped him over his shoulder. Rakefire crashed onto the stone floor with a loud thud. The crowd gasped. Garrick quickly backed away, breathing hard. "Okay, he's fast, but I can use that against him." Rakefire stood up, dusting himself off. He studied Garrick carefully. Then, for the first time, he smiled. Interesting. The true meaning of the duel. Rakefire attacked again. But this time, he wasn't just using brute force. He was testing Garrick, pushing him, trying to see how he reacted. Garrick realized something. This duel wasn't just about strength. It was about proving his spirit. Could he stay strong under pressure? Could he adapt? Could he fight with honor? The Excelveran warrior had been taught his entire life that only the strong deserved respect. But Garrick wasn't just strong. He was smart. He was resilient. He never gave up. Slowly, the duel changed. Garrick wasn't just defending anymore. He was countering, adapting, learning. For every strike Rakever threw, Garrick had an answer. For every attack, he had a counterattack. The crowd watched in stunned silence. Finally, Rakever stepped back, breathing heavily. He raised a hand, a signal of surrender. Garrick had won. Honor earned. The energy shield around the platform flickered and disappeared. Rakever turned to face the High Council. He knelt on one knee and spoke clearly. This human has proven his worth. His spirit is strong. His honor is undeniable. The arena erupted into cheers. Above, Elder Vortan nodded. Then it is decided. He turned to Garrick. Human, you have won the ritual of honor. Garrick let out a breath of relief. It was over. He had done it. But then, something unexpected happened. The two Excelveran women he had noticed earlier stepped forward. They stood beside Elder Vortan, their golden eyes calm but intense. Vortan gestured toward them. As is our custom, the victor is awarded a prize of great honor. Velra and Ciri, daughters of our noble house, are now yours. Garrick blinked. Wait, what? The two women studied him carefully. They were tall, elegant, and carried themselves with quiet strength. They weren't afraid of him. They were analyzing him. Velra finally spoke. You do not seem pleased, human. Garrick scratched the back of his neck. It's not that. It's just, people aren't prizes where I come from. The arena fell into stunned silence. Ciri tilted her head. Then what do you call it when someone proves themselves worthy? Garrick thought for a moment, then smiled. I call it respect. The two women exchanged glances. Something in their expressions changed. They had expected a warrior, but they had found something else. Something more. Above, Elder Vortan gave a slow, approving nod. Then let this be a new beginning. The crowd cheered once more, but this time, Garrick knew, this victory wasn't just his. It was humanity's, and it was only the beginning. Garrick Voss stood in the center of the Excelvera Grand Hall, still trying to process what had just happened. The trial was over. He had passed all three challenges: the test of endurance, the trial of intellect, and the duel of spirit. He had earned the respect of the Excelveran people, but now he was faced with something unexpected. Two Excelveran women, Velra and Ciri, stood before him. They were tall and elegant, their golden eyes studying him with curiosity. Elder Vortan had declared them his prize for winning the trials. Garrick still wasn't sure what that meant. He cleared his throat. Look, I appreciate the honor, but where I come from, people aren't rewards. A heavy silence fell over the room. The gathered warriors and nobles exchanged confused glances. Even Velra and Ciri seemed surprised. Finally, Velra spoke. Do you refuse the honor of the High Council? Garrick sighed. It's not about refusing. It's about understanding. What does this honor really mean? Elder Vortan's gaze was unreadable, but after a moment, he nodded. A wise question. Come, let us explain. The meaning of the gift. Garrick followed the High Council into an ornate chamber, filled with glowing crystal pillars and carved stone walls. Velra and Ciri walked beside him, their expressions neutral. Vortan gestured to a large mural on the wall. It showed a Excelveran warrior standing between two figures, one on each side. The warrior held a symbolic golden bond that connected them all. Long ago, our people believed strength was the only measure of worth. Vortan began. But over time, we learned that a true leader does not stand alone. A warrior is made stronger by those who stand beside him. He turned to Garrick. This is why, when a warrior proves themselves, they are not given mere riches or titles. They are given what is most valuable, companions who will support and challenge them. Garrick frowned. So, Velra and Ciri are supposed to be my companions. Ciri, the quieter of the two, finally spoke. We are not slaves, if that is what you fear. Velra nodded. We have the right to accept or reject the bond, just as you do. Garrick was surprised. He had assumed they had no choice, but this was something different. Ciri continued. We were chosen because we are of noble lineage and skilled in diplomacy and combat. If we accept the bond, we would act as your advisors, allies, and, if fate allows, your closest kin. Garrick ran a hand through his hair. And if I refuse? Vortan's expression remained calm. Then no dishonor will fall upon you. But understand this, Garrick Voss. This is not simply a gift. It is an offer of trust between our people, a bridge between our worlds. Garrick looked at Velra and Ciri again. They weren't being forced into anything. They were waiting for his decision. A choice to make. Garrick sighed and rubbed his temples. This was a lot to take in. He had come here expecting to prove himself, not to become part of an alien tradition. Velra crossed her arms. You hesitate. Why? Garrick exhaled. Because I wasn't expecting any of this. Where I come from, relationships, friendships, partnerships, alliances, they're built over time, not decided by tradition. Ciri tilted her head. And yet, you do not reject the idea entirely. Garrick hesitated. She wasn't wrong. Velra smirked. Then let us settle this in a way that makes sense to both of us. Garrick raised an eyebrow. And how's that? She stepped forward, fire in her golden eyes. A challenge. Garrick groaned. Another one. Ciri's lips twitched slightly. It is our way. Velra explained. We will each face you in combat, but not to win, to learn. Ciri nodded. If you can prove that you understand our ways, even just a little, then we will accept you as an equal. Garrick let out a slow breath. This was their way of deciding, their way of seeing if he was worthy of this bond. He looked at them both and nodded. All right, let's do this. A different kind of battle. The sparring chamber was smaller than the arena, but still large enough for combat. The floor was smooth stone, marked with ancient Selveran battle symbols. Velra stepped onto the mat first, rolling her shoulders. No weapons, just skill. Garrick cracked his knuckles. Fair enough. Velra attacked first, fast and precise. Garrick barely dodged, her fist grazing his ribs. She was stronger than she looked. She came at him again, using a sweeping kick. This time, Garrick reacted differently. Instead of dodging, he absorbed the hit, using his own momentum to shift her balance. Velra stumbled, surprised. Garrick didn't press the attack. He simply stood his ground. She smirked. You learn fast. Next, Ciri stepped forward. She moved differently, calm, focused, controlled. Instead of attacking directly, she tested his reactions. Garrick adapted again. He didn't rely on strength. He relied on instinct, timing, balance. After several exchanges, Ciri stepped back and bowed her head. Enough. Velra chuckled. You're not just strong. You understand when to attack and when to hold back. That is what we needed to see. Ciri looked at Garrick seriously. We accept the bond. Garrick let out a breath. Does that mean I passed? Velra smirked. It means we'll see if you can keep up. Garrick laughed. Maybe this wasn't going to be so bad after all. Garrick Voss sat at the edge of the Selvera training grounds, catching his breath. His muscles ached from the sparring session with Velra and Ciri, but there was a sense of satisfaction in the pain. The two Zelveran women stood nearby, speaking quietly to each other. Occasionally, they would glance at Garrick, their golden eyes filled with curiosity. He still wasn't sure what to make of them. They had accepted the bond. But what did that really mean? Before he could think too much, Elder Vortan arrived, his deep voice breaking the silence. Garrick Voss, your trials are complete, but your journey is just beginning. Garrick stood up, stretching his sore arms. Yeah, I figured as much. What's next? Vortan gestured for him to follow. Come, there is much to discuss. A new purpose. Garrick walked beside the elder, with Velra and Ciri following closely. They entered the Hall of Ancients, a vast chamber filled with glowing blue archives and floating holograms of Excelveran history. Vortan stopped before a large circular map of the galaxy. He pointed to a section marked in red. Do you know what this is? Garrick studied it carefully. A war zone. Vortan nodded. The Drelvec Dominion, a brutal empire that seeks to conquer all in its path. Garrick frowned. And I'm guessing they're a problem. Velra crossed her arms. They are more than a problem. They have already destroyed 3 Excelveran colonies. Ciri added, our warriors are strong, but the Drelvec are ruthless. They do not fight with honor. They fight to consume. Garrick sighed. So, what do you need from me? Vortan's gaze was firm. You are a warrior, but you think differently from us. You adapt, you strategize, and you do not rely on tradition alone. Velra nodded. We need that. If we are to survive, we must change, and you will help us. Garrick ran a hand through his hair. So, I'm not just here to prove myself. I'm here to help you prepare for war. Ciri gave him a steady look. Yes. For a moment, Garrick didn't say anything. This was bigger than him. He had come here just to survive, to prove that humans were strong. Now he was being asked to help shape the future of an entire species. He let out a slow breath. All right, he said finally. I'm in. Lessons of the human mind. The next few days were unlike anything Garrick had ever experienced. Instead of more fighting, he spent hours in strategy meetings, war simulations, and history lessons. The Excelveran people were incredible warriors, but Garrick quickly realized their weakness. They relied too much on tradition. They had strict rules on how to fight, how to attack, how to defend. They believed in honorable duels and fair battles. But the Drelvec didn't care about honor. They fought with deception, ambushes, and overwhelming force. Garrick sat in a strategy hall with Velra, Ciri, and a few Excelveran generals. A hologram of a battlefield floated before them. One of the generals, Korvek, pointed at the map. We will challenge the Drelvec commander to a duel. If we win, they will retreat. Garrick shook his head. That won't work. Korvek frowned. It is tradition. Yeah, and the Drelvec don't care about your traditions. Garrick leaned forward. If you challenge them, they'll just laugh and shoot you in the face. A heavy silence followed his words. Ciri folded her arms. Then what do you suggest? Garrick tapped the map. We change the way we fight. We use traps, ambushes, misdirection. We don't fight where they expect us to. Velra raised an eyebrow. You suggest we fight dishonorably. Garrick smirked. No, I suggest you fight to win. Breaking tradition. The next test was practical. Garrick stood in an open training field with a group of Excelveran warriors. Velra and Ciri watched from the side as he explained his approach. All right, let's try something new. Garrick gestured toward a few warriors. You're the defenders. The rest of us are the attackers. But instead of a straight-up fight, we'll use strategy. The warriors exchanged uncertain glances. This was not their way. But when the test began, Garrick's methods proved effective. Instead of rushing in headfirst, he had the attackers set up distractions, use the environment, and work in teams. The defenders, trained in traditional Excelveran combat, were caught off guard. They expected direct fights. They weren't prepared for deception. In minutes, the attackers overwhelmed them. Velra and Ciri looked at each other, realization dawning in their eyes. "It works," Velra admitted. Ciri nodded. "We must evolve if we are to survive." Garrick grinned. "Now you're getting it." Garrick Voss stood at the edge of the Selveran war chamber, watching as the holographic battlefield flickered before him. The warriors around him were still uneasy. For generations, they had fought with honor, facing their enemies head-on. But now, Garrick was teaching them something new, something dangerous to their way of thinking. Velra and Ciri stood by his side, their golden eyes scanning the war map. "The Dralvek are moving faster than we expected," Velra muttered, tapping the glowing red markers. "They'll reach our outer colonies in 3 days." Ciri frowned. "If we don't stop them, they will burn everything in their path." Garrick exhaled. "Then we make sure they never get that far." The room fell silent. All eyes turned to him. One of the older generals, Korvek, narrowed his gaze. "And how do you suggest we do that, human?" Garrick smirked. "By using their own tactics against them. A new kind of war." The Exelveran generals gathered around as Garrick adjusted the battlefield hologram. He pointed to a narrow valley near the outer colonies. "The Dralvek expect a direct battle, right? So we don't give them one. We set up ambush points here, here, and here." He moved the display, showing how smaller strike teams could use the rocky terrain to trap the enemy. "When they pass through, we collapse the cliffs and cut off their escape. Then we hit them with fast attacks from all sides." Velra's eyes gleamed. "Divide and conquer." Garrick nodded. "Exactly." Korvek still looked skeptical. "This is not our way." Ciri turned to him. "Our way will not stop them." The older warrior clenched his jaw, but said nothing. He knew the truth. The Dralvek had already destroyed 3 colonies. If they didn't change, there would be nothing left to protect. After a long silence, Korvek let out a deep breath. "Very well. We fight the human way." Garrick smiled. "Then let's get to work." Preparing for battle. The next 2 days were a blur of activity. Zelveran warriors trained in new formations, learning how to use stealth, deception, and teamwork instead of just brute strength. Garrick worked with Velra and Ciri to prepare the battlefield. They planted traps, explosives, and hidden defense points. Ciri approached Garrick as he adjusted a remote detonator. "Do you think this will be enough?" Garrick wiped sweat from his forehead. "It has to be." She studied him for a moment. "You do not fear this battle, but I see something else in your eyes." Garrick hesitated. She was sharp. He sighed. "I'm just wondering, if I teach your people to fight like this, what happens after the war?" Ciri tilted her head. "What do you mean?" "War changes people." Garrick's voice was quiet. "If you start fighting like the Dralvek, will you ever go back to your old ways?" Ciri considered his words, but before she could respond, a horn sounded. The enemy had arrived. The battle begins. From a high cliff, Garrick, Velra, and Ciri watched as massive Dralvek war machines rumbled through the valley. The enemy soldiers moved in tight formations, expecting a direct fight. But they wouldn't get one. Garrick raised his hand. "Wait." The Exelveran warriors held their breath, hidden among the rocks. The Dralvek marched deeper into the valley. Closer, closer. Garrick's fingers tightened into a fist. Now, with a deafening roar, explosives erupted from the cliffs, sending boulders crashing down. The Dralvek forces were split in half, trapped. Before they could react, Exelveran strike teams rushed in from all sides, attacking swiftly and disappearing into the shadows. Velra leaped into battle, her twin blades cutting through enemy lines. Ciri stayed behind, coordinating the squads. "Focus on the isolated groups. Don't let them regroup." Garrick moved through the battlefield, using his rifle to take out key targets. The Dralvek commander roared in frustration. "Cowards! Fight us directly." Garrick smirked. "Nah, I think we'll stick to our way." The turning point. The battle raged for hours. The Dralvek, unprepared for this kind of warfare, began to falter. They had expected a glorious fight. Instead, they were being taken apart piece by piece. As the last enemy war machine fell, Garrick stood at the center of the battlefield, catching his breath. Velra wiped her blade and nodded. It worked. Ciri approached. The Drolvec forces are retreating. Garrick exhaled. They had won. But as he looked at the battlefield, a thought lingered in his mind. Was this just the beginning? Garrick Voss stood on the high cliffs overlooking the battlefield. The dust from the fight was still settling, and the bodies of fallen Drolvec soldiers lay scattered across the valley. They had won, but the victory felt different than he expected. Velra and Ciri stood beside him, their golden eyes scanning the ruins of the enemy forces. There was no celebration, no cheers of triumph. The Excelveran people had changed, and Garrick had been the one to change them. After the battle, the remaining Excelveran warriors moved through the battlefield, collecting their injured and making sure no Drolvec survivors remained. Elder Vortan arrived, his expression unreadable. He looked at Garrick, then at the destroyed valley. "You have led us to victory," the elder said slowly. "The Drolvec will think twice before attacking us again." Garrick nodded. That was the goal. Vortan studied him. "And yet, you do not look pleased." Garrick sighed, wiping dirt from his face. "Because I know what comes next." Velra tilted her head. "What do you mean?" Garrick turned to them. "The Drolvec won't forget this. They'll come back with more forces, more weapons. And now you have a choice." Ciri stepped forward. "A choice?" Garrick's voice was calm but serious. "You've learned a new way to fight, a way to win. But if you keep fighting like this, if you keep using deception and strategy, it will change you. Your people will become something different." The warriors around him fell silent. "You need to decide what kind of future you want. A council of leaders." That night, the Excelveran leaders gathered in the Hall of Ancients. Garrick, Velra, and Ciri stood before them. Elder Vortan looked around the room. "Our people have fought with honor for centuries. That is our way. But today, we won because we fought differently." He gestured toward Garrick. "Because of him." Murmurs spread through the room. Some leaders looked proud. Others looked uneasy. One warrior, General Korvek, spoke up. "We did what we had to do. But is this the path we will continue?" Velra glanced at Garrick before speaking. "Honor is important, but survival is more important." Ciri added, "If we do not adapt, we will die." Garrick crossed his arms. "I'm not here to tell you what to do. This is your home, your people. But if you keep fighting, you have to accept what comes with it." Elder Vortan nodded. "And what do you think that is, Garrick Voss?" Garrick took a slow breath. "War never stops. Once you change, once you start fighting like this, it's hard to go back. You'll be stronger, yes, but you won't be the same." Silence filled the room. The Excelveran leaders looked at each other. They had never faced a choice like this before. Finally, Vortan spoke. "Then we must decide. A new path forward." The council debated for hours. Some warriors wanted to return to the old ways, to fight with honor even if it meant dying. Others believed Garrick's methods were the only way forward. Velra and Ciri stood firmly on Garrick's side. They had seen what he had seen. At last, the decision was made. Elder Vortan stood before the assembly. "The Excelvera will not be weak. We will not allow the Drolvec to destroy our people." He turned to Garrick. "We will fight, as you have taught us." Garrick nodded. "Then you'll survive." Velra placed a hand on Garrick's shoulder. "We would not have won without you." Ciri gave a small smile. "And now we are ready for the future. The journey continues." As dawn broke over the Excelveran city, Garrick stood on a high balcony, looking out over the horizon. He had come here to prove that humans were strong. Instead, he had changed an entire civilization. Velra and Ciri joined him. "What will you do now?" Siri asked. Garrick smirked. I was thinking I might stick around. You're going to need someone to keep an eye on things. Velra chuckled. Good. It would be a shame to lose you. Garrick looked at the sky. The war wasn't over. The Dralvek would return. But the XL Vera would be ready. And this time, they wouldn't just survive. They would win.